Morning everyone, welcome to the Red Track. And next up we've got Gary Cox.
Thank you, Tom. Good morning everyone. Nice to be at B-Sleds in a very sunny place, which is awesome. So, as Tom said, I'm Gary. 28 years of working in networking and security. So I am older than I look, honest. Currently working for a company that's very focused on DNS-based security. I'll explain what that is as we go through, because DNS is a dirty word to some people, but actually it's a thing that holds the internet together. That and BGP, we won't talk about that today. I'm currently a senior manager at Infoblox. I run the pre-sales team for UK and Ireland, but I'm very closely aligned with our threat intelligence team and other parts of the business. So anyway, that's me. Today's topic. So I'm going to be talking about bad actors and supply chains. Now, arguably some of these are bad actors. Perhaps one face on here more so than others, but we really shouldn't pick on Steven Seagal. So, anyway. But I'll explain a little bit about what I'm talking about there in a minute. And when I talk about supply chains, I'm not going to talk about Amazon specifically, but I like to use this just as an example so that we're level setting what do I mean by supply chains. So companies that have many moving parts inside their organizations. And I'm going to talk about how the criminal actors are no different. So if we think about Amazon, they've got logistics, third-party companies and their own doing logistics. They've got third-party companies building packaging for them. Their job is to do really what some of the criminal folks that I'll talk about today are doing, right? They are finding supply and demand. So when we go onto Amazon, what do we see? We go, you might like this based on your searching history, right? It's putting things together, putting people with products. And this is no different in the criminal world, right? It's finding victims for the different criminal entities. But anyway, Amazon's just an example, like I said, just a level set. I'm not picking on them. So, context is good. I'm a huge believer that anything we talk about, we should always give context around it so we know what we're talking about. So most of the things that I'm talking about today are names that you won't have heard of. Right? We're all familiar with the APT this and the such and such Blizzard that and the Cozy Bear the other and the Atomic Kitten something else. I think the last one possibly not a bad actor. Anyway. For the ones that we're talking about today, you probably won't have heard of, okay? So it's something a little bit different, hopefully, for you guys. Now, to find different stuff, much like Mr. Liam Neeson here, you have to have a particular set of skills and a particular data set to go applying those skills to. And that's really what my company and others like it do very, very well. We have a very good data lake, specifically of enterprise DNS data to go and find interesting stuff. Okay. All right. These are the names that you probably aren't familiar with. So we've got various dogs and pumas and seahorses and meerkats and lizards and vipers, and this is what we name them. But behind each of these is a technique. So in the case of dogs, that tends to be C2 behavior. It tends to be things like remote access Trojans and various other nastiness. Pumas are link shorteners, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a bit. Seahorse, anything to do with CNAME manipulation. So if you're familiar with DNS, a CNAME is a way of providing an alias. So you have your normal record, then there's an alias going to something else. Vipers are traffic distribution systems. And again, I'll talk about what those are as part of this. Lizards and meerkats, it goes. Meerkats are kind of interesting. Meerkats is to do with scanning and probing. Tends to be behaviour coming out of China, but again, it's an entire talk on its own, that one. So these are the ones you won't have heard of, right? So let's double click in and see, what somebody's doing. Now, the one thing I will say is, and maybe this is me playing outside the rules here a little bit. Normally when folks like myself submit a paper to do a talk at B-Sides or any other event, there's quite a long period of time between when we submit the thing we want to talk about and the actual day of the event. So when I submit this, I was talking about something called Vextrio Viper, right? One of these vipers down the bottom here. The world has moved on. So it's not just Vextrio now. So I've expanded this slide, and you'll see it as we go through. I've expanded this slide deck to talk about some of the more recent findings. Okay, so hopefully that's within the rules of yeah, Tom's nodding. We're good. All right. You don't care. Move on. All right. So it's all about the money, right? And let's put the cybercrime economy under the microscope just for a second. So the actors that we're talking about are becoming service providers to affiliates. Okay? It's part of a supply chain, like I talked about, right? Like Amazon. They build these hosting networks, they provide traffic distribution systems, proxy networks. They are the ones who are serving up the victim to the actor groups. Okay? And there's money changing hands at all parts of this. Cybercrime is learning from physical crime. Again, having this network of people that do the things you need them to do, right? If I'm in the good old days breaking into a bank, well, I've probably paid someone who's a really good driver to be my getaway driver. I've paid someone to be the guy with the gun, right? I've paid someone to be my inside man at the bank, right? All of that stuff. Fine. No different. Absolutely no different. The only difference is it's not in person now, it's behind a keyboard from halfway around the planet. And crime networks are transnational by design. Deliberately by design, right? No one wants to make it easy for the NCA or the FBI or whoever to track them down, to find them, to get to attribution. Attribution is actually really, really hard in the cyber realm. So, I mean, certainly we, as the company I work for, don't tend to try and get to attribution. Leave that to other folks, because normally by the time you get to attribution, far, far, far too late as defenders. Far too late. All right? The horse is well and truly bolted at that point. Okay, and you've got shell companies and all sorts of things going on in between that obfuscate and hide the behaviours that are going on, hide the real attribution of who these actor groups are. Okay, let's talk about traffic distribution systems for a second. What do? That's it. They serve up victims, amongst other things. They filter the inbound traffic so that only the profile of the particular target audience reaches the particular form of nastiness that a particular actor group wants you to reach. Okay? Think about that for a second. All right, you've got this adware and noise and, someone's clicked on a phishing link or whatever. The same thing doesn't necessarily happen to every single person who inadvertently clicks on that link or redirects that web page or lands somewhere that's compromised. Okay? Different behaviours happen depending on who you are, where you are in the world, what type of machine you've got. That's what these folks do. They're providing a filtration layer, okay, serving up the right people to the right form of nastiness. They can function as a load balancer, making sure that the traffic is directed. Right? And they provide protection. They hide. They provide obfuscation to the actual actor groups. So, if you're a criminal and you want to make some money, we all know that you've got things like ransomware for hire, and you can hire botnets and you do all this stuff, right? This is a middleware player who is basically providing that middle ground between victim and actor. And of course, there's money flowing. They can keep metrics on who do they send where and what and why. So that way you can pay out rewards. Okay? Now, I would say this is no different really to any other affiliate scheme. We've all seen sort of referrals, like, refer your friend to the bank, right? A link goes through, great, you're going to get 50 quid in the bank for referring them. Same with people opening up gambling accounts, refer a friend here, there and everywhere. This ad took you to this, right? No different. It's just now we're not on the legitimate side of the house, we're on the criminal side of the house. So let's talk about Vextrio. This is, I would say, the actor that we see the most in something like 70% of our customers' traffic. Let me put some stats around that for a second, okay? Infoblox has got approximately 13,000 customers globally. Okay, this is the who's who of the FTSE this and the Fortune that and whatever, right? So, we see these guys and the various domains that they use, because it's not just one domain, it is thousands of domains inside 70% of our customers' traffic. That's vast. They have no business being there at all. There is nothing business legitimate about anything that goes on inside this network. Okay? So, like I said, we've got various folks. You've got Sock Goulash, Clearfake, there's Formbook, which is Xloader. All of this is using this infrastructure. So we've identified approximately 60 other actor affiliates inside this network. So it's not a surprise, really. It shouldn't be a surprise that it's so prolific when we look at the traffic. And like I said, really, all it's doing is inbound, outbound, right? Who is my victim? What form of nastiness are they going to get landed with? That's all they do. And these folks have been hiding in plain sight for so long. Absolutely so long. I mean, I think these guys, from memory, I think were around since something like 2017, 2018, when we look back over the passive DNS data and started seeing the behaviours that we see that identify. So a very, very long time. And why has no one spotted it? Quite frankly, no one's been looking. No one looks in DNS for stuff that just looks like traffic redirects, do they? No, they do not. We all worry about attribution. Like I said, we've all heard of the Cozy Bears and the APTs and the Blizzard this and the Blizzard that. We've heard of that stuff because that's attributed. Someone's done a first to find it, published a report. It's out there. We know what it is. We know what the indicators are. We know how to block it. Not this stuff. Because it's in the middle, right? It's a bit like me saying to you, which company makes Amazon's packaging? Anyone? Anyone? No? It's a company called DS Smith. They're based in the UK. But, point being, no one's heard of them. We've all heard of Amazon. Same thing. So, someone asked me this morning, you're doing a talk. Are you a geek? I'm not, but I thought I'd put some geek-like slides up for you. This is various different ways that it can redirect. It can use text records. It can use CNAME records. A text record is basically just a pointer, right? It's a DNS record that contains whatever string of characters someone wants to put in there. And it's a way of identifying and then, cause and effect, being able to supply a different answer, point someone in a different direction, provide a different bit of metadata. Okay? I talked about obfuscation, hiding. This is something else that these traffic distribution systems do on behalf of the bad actors. And I apologize for everyone that's in the back of the room. This will be tiny for you, but I'll talk through it because we don't need to worry about the code. We only need to worry about what it's doing. And what it's doing is this. All right? It is looking at who is the source. Where is my traffic coming from? It looks like it's in a virtualization environment. Maybe it's a sandbox. Fine, I'm going to redirect you to a legitimate site. No harm, no foul. Right? I'm going to look for, is it in VirtualBox? I'm going to look for, is this scanning behavior? It's trying to basically hide from researchers. It's trying to hide from people that might uncover what it's doing and why it's there. And again, this is very useful to the bad actors because it means that it's one layer of hiding, one layer of obscuring them from being found out and from the FBI coming and knocking on their door. So, CNAME records. Quick show of hands in the room. Who knows what a CNAME record is? I was expecting a hand up there. Okay. Fine. All right. For those who didn't put your hands up, a CNAME record is an alias record. It basically is a way of redirecting to another name. Okay. So normally in DNS we'll have the IP address, which is the host, the system we want to get to. We'll have an A record, which is our originating record of what that thing is. And then a CNAME can be an alias pointing that A record. Okay? These folks will use chains of CNAMEs to, again, hide things, which makes it really, really, really easy to just change one thing and the traffic would go somewhere else. We can change the names. We can hide behind stuff, which is easily changeable. Okay? So I would say, and I'm going to throw this out as a comment, anyone working in security and or cybersecurity, depending on your preferred terminologies, should at least know the basics of DNS today. Just to know how this stuff plumbs together. Okay? Because it will help with analysis, or it can help with analysis. Don't need to be an expert on it. You don't need to be the guy that wrote the book on it, right? Fine, we've got him on staff, so you can't have him anyway. But it is useful to know what a CNAME is versus an A record versus a PTR record, etc., etc., etc. Okay. So now let's talk about something else. Is everyone familiar with the term DGAs, domain generation algorithms? Some? Okay. Let me throw an R in front of that for registered. So a lot of the time with DGAs, and the thing with things like domain generation algorithms is they're the way of creating hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of domains to be used by malware, ransomware, whatever other form of nastiness, traffic distribution systems, etc. They normally don't get registered. If you register a domain, then you're paying to use that domain, right? It's not just some noise out on the internet. You've actually paid a registrar to use it, right? So why would I do that? If I've just got these throwaway stuff, why would I pay to register? Well, part of the thing that we do as a security industry is we look for reputation, right? It's just got a fraction more reputation if it's been registered because someone's actually bothered to pay and have a domain. Yeah, but you can still run scripts and algorithms to generate tens of thousands of domains and register them. So our DJs or registered DJs it's a different flavor, a different variant of nastiness. And it's important to know this stuff exists. And I'll talk about why in just a moment, okay? But I want to introduce this as a terminology to you guys today. So I said I was going to bring this bang up to date. So Vextrio was a while ago, okay? If we look at the date of these, so Revolver Rabbit, 17th of July. What are we on today? 27th? 10 days ago. Vigorous Viper, 22nd of July. All right? So I'm bang up to date for you guys and anyone else who's watching this in the years to come. All right? Less bang up to date for them. But anyway, for those in the room, I'm bang up to date. And the reason I point these two out, and we'll go into Big Viper a bit more in a minute, but Revolver Rabbit is a RDGA-based, so registered domain generation algorithm-based traffic distribution system. Now let this one sink in for a minute. They registered 500,000 domains. Now, if I'm registering a domain, I have to pay some money for that. All right, so let's, for the sake of conversation in the room, because we're amongst friends, let's call it $2 per domain that I need to register. Okay? 500,000 times 2. Any maths geniuses in the room? All right. So, someone has spent $1 million just on buying domains. Remember, they are middleware players. Someone is paying them to use their service. Someone is getting money from the victim. Right? There is enough money in this criminal activity for someone who is just the equivalent of the people that make Amazon's cardboard boxes to invest at a bare minimum, because I'm guessing there's servers and there's stuff behind it, right? But just for the domains, $1 million. Just let that one soak in for a second, right? That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for someone that we've never heard of, who's just running infrastructure for other criminal groups to leverage. In the case of Vig Viper, and the reason we call it Vig is because it's to do with gambling. If anyone knows what a Vig is in gambling, it's basically the cut that the house makes, right? So this is all to do with gambling in China. So gambling is illegal in China and Greater China. Doesn't mean they don't do it. There's just a huge criminal enterprise there that benefits from letting people gamble that shouldn't or legally aren't allowed to gamble, right? Same thing. One of the domains that this thing uses, which is kb.com, I think, from memory, I'm sure it'll be on my slides in a minute, that domain alone, one domain, right, not 500,000, a single domain, that was changing hands for around about $500,000. So again, there is significant money being invested just in the DNS infrastructure that sits behind these criminal enterprises. Which again, when we think about that, right? How many of you have the pleasure of going to your CISO or your board or whoever and going, have £500,000? Just want to buy a new control. Please, have some money? These guys are doing it. So let's talk about Vig Viper just for a second. I'm whizzing through these slides a little bit. So I'm not particularly a football person, but there's some logos up here that some of you, if you follow football, might be aware of. If not, you've probably at least heard the names Manchester United and Aston Villa. So what's Man U and Aston Villa? And I don't know if that other one is some Dutch team. I don't know. What have they got to do with Chinese criminal gambling? These are legitimate organisations, aren't they? Of sportsmen running around, kicking a ball, spitting on the ground, hugging each other or something. I don't know. But anyway, what they're doing is there's these shell companies in the middle. So kb.com, Yahoo, and so on, right? These shell companies look like legitimate companies. And they are effectively gambling companies. They pay for sponsorship through the different sports clubs, right? So great, they look legitimate. Their brands are seen on the banners going around the stadium. They are seen on the sleeves of the shirts. This gives them a degree of credibility. So it means that then folks, especially in China, who want to gamble and stuff, they go, "Oh, I've seen those brands. Great, yeah, I'm going to use those services, those criminal services." But they don't know that, or maybe they do and they don't care because they know it's illegal, so they shouldn't be doing it. But you've got this flow coming down from the folks at the top who should do better due diligence on who their sponsors are. All right, but fine, they're getting money from these folks to have a logo. I won't knock them for that. Fine. Then you've got the brands in the middle here. Then you've got the domains that have been advertised. So kb.com was the one I mentioned earlier, but you've got yahoo.com and so on and so forth. And then underneath you've got this. You've got, yet again, a traffic distribution system using proxies, using DNS, using CNAMEs. And what this is doing is it's figuring out, again, who is my audience. Now, if I go to one of these domains, I will land up in a very different place to if my IP looks like it's in China. They will end up probably in the right place. Probably, depending on what systems they're using. Whereas I won't. I'll get redirected to some nonsense, right? And again, it's all about making sure that my intended audience reaches the place that I want it to reach. So follow the money. Now, the thing with these guys is, like I said, these are criminal organizations. They're typically registered out of countries that, in fact, actually, I think the Philippines recently cracked down on it, but they're registered in countries where they can do business, typically. Okay? But behind the scenes here, you've got human trafficking. You've got pig butchering scams, all sorts of stuff, because folks end up in debt with these criminal organizations because it's gambling. And once they're in debt, they start being blackmailed. They start being leveraged. So there's a whole lot of nastiness that goes on behind the scenes here. And you guys thought you were coming to a nice light talk about DNS today, right? So all this stuff plumbs together. My point to you is we can leverage DNS and intelligence if we're looking in the right place, in the right way, to uncover things that are much bigger than the sum of their parts. And this is an example of that. The other name, or one of the other names that was on the actor list was Prolific Puma. So, same sort of thing, except what this guy does is a link shortening service. So has anyone used Bitly or Owly or anything like that? Or you certainly would have seen it, right? Yeah, guess what? The Crims have got one of those as well. And why have they got it? Because we're humans, we're fallible, we make mistakes, right? Oh, it's just a shortened link, it's probably safe. I'll click it anyway, right? The guidance from whether it be our NCSC or UK Gov, same in the US nowadays, is be super suspicious about shortened links because you don't know what they are, you don't know what's behind them. Okay, and as I said, the bad actors have got one of those services as well, right? It's not just Bitly and Owly and the others that are out there who aren't, but who knows? Anyone can pay for their services. But again, this is what Prolific Puma does. It takes the shortened URL, redirects to the original badness. Okay, so if you're not inspecting this stuff, and think about it, right? Chances are the shortened link isn't going to be in your protective feed. Chances are the redirect is happening further down chain. So, compromise. So I wasn't going to go too deep on Prolific Puma today. This is more about the different techniques, right? So as long as you've registered link shorteners are bad, my job is done on that one. But basically, your users are wary of strange domains. They won't click links, but shortened links somehow we bizarrely trust. I don't know why. I haven't delved into the psychology of it. But somehow as humans we go, yeah, whatever, right? I don't know why. This one is a malicious link shortener, as I said. Creates links for other entities, usually supplied through text messages. That's one reason for having a shortened link, right? If you're actually using an old school text message. And when the users click on a link, they will get redirected, like so many of these traffic distribution systems, to whatever nastiness is floating around behind it. Okay. Now, I wasn't sure who my audience was going to be, so I thought I'd put a too long didn't read in here for you all. And this could be true of traffic distribution systems or DNS. Either way is good, but I know a guy who knows another guy, right? That's kind of how DNS and CNAME chaining and everything else works. So throw that in there, just up-level my audience. Now, this is how we go about doing things. I don't expect any of our customers to do this because, quite frankly, you haven't got the time, effort, energy, teams, or data set to do it. Okay? But it's all about identifying these patterns. This is DNS activity, traffic out on the internet. Okay? This is not a normal pattern. A normal pattern would be fairly scattergun, right? Because we're all unique individuals, we make our queries, and we're going out to the umpteen websites that we go to. Sometimes we see clusters of behavior for legitimate stuff, obviously, Office 365 domains, Google domains, etc., etc., etc. We remove that from our data. Right? We don't care about the legitimate stuff. So when you then start to see clusters of behaviors that aren't the well-known websites, well, that leaves something that's worth investigating. And this tends to be how we would start our investigation, right? By double-clicking on one of these clusters and figuring out what's behind it, what's going on, what is redirecting to what is redirecting to what is redirecting to what, and where is it going? It's kind of like, follow the rabbit down the hole, right? But it's important to have the right data lake and the right people and tooling and stuff to do this. So, what can you guys do? You can, once you've got the data set, block the traffic distribution systems. Okay? I'll go back to my lovely Amazon analogy. If they haven't got any packaging, they can't send the packages. All right? If you've let the air out the tyres of the lorries, yeah, they're going to need to pump the tyres up again, right? Whatever. Bad analogies. But same is true of traffic distribution systems. If we disrupt them as an industry, and when I say we, I'm talking about us as an industry, not just you guys as defenders of your organisations. But if we disrupt the TDSs, it's making the cost of sale for the criminal actors higher. Okay? It won't completely get rid of them. Of course it won't. All right? It's a game of cat and mouse the entire time. You guys will know that. But we can make it harder for them. So, summaries and takeaways. Criminals have supply chains too. They have for a long time. The industry, folks like us and others, are slowly uncovering extra bits of the supply chain that we didn't know existed. Right? We've known about ransomware as a service for a very long time. We haven't known about the traffic distribution systems that sit behind this stuff. Okay? Now we do. These supply chains invest millions of dollars in building and maintaining and refreshing this infrastructure. Okay? And that's a key word. This is infrastructure that they build, own, operate, and host and resell. Likely the supply chains know more about DNS than you do. Likely they know more about it than I do. Okay? We've actually been, impressed is the wrong word when we're talking about bad actors, but I'm going to stick with it. We've been kind of impressed by how they're leveraging DNS, how they're using it to hide in plain sight and have been for years. Okay? Only once we build the algorithms and the things to kind of detect the ways they're doing things do we start to uncover this stuff. So it's all about the data science, really. Okay? Traffic distributions are hard to find, but can be highly disruptive when we block them. So with that, that's me done. Hopefully I'm well within time.
Well within time.
Excellent. I'm happy to take any questions, but equally I'm also expecting stunned silence because it's DNS after all. So,
what registrars are they using? Because most of the registrars are highly regulated through ICANN.
Yep.
So how are they actually registering this number of domains?
The question is, what registrars aren't they using? The reality is it's any and all. Yes, there are some that are better than others, but it's prolific. Some of the stuff becomes really easy. So if you look at different top-level domains, people are doing xyz.com and .top and that sort of stuff, that becomes really easy to block because you just go, right, fine. But actually, Prolific Puma, I think it was, and the colleagues in the back room might keep me honest, they were actually using one of the US registrars, who is a very reputable registrar, and comfortably registering all of their stuff legitimately.
So a lot of it's that abuse protection of these registrars that they're just not doing because it's expensive, probably.
Well, again, it's not illegal to register a domain name.
So it's very hard to say,
Yep.
well, you can register, you Google, so you can register 1,000 domains on our service because you're obviously legitimately using them, but you, as an individual over there, can't.
That would be a nice control to be put in place, but
you can't.
Very few do that because, like I said, it's not illegal to buy it. But there should be questions asked. I 100% agree with that as a statement because, again, it's the same as the statement I made. It's like, what legitimate business purpose is there? It should be qualified, but yeah, it isn't. But good question.
Do you think if it's any connection between DNS threat groups and ransomware groups?
Yes. 100%. 100%. So any form of nastiness, whether it's ransomware, malware, phishing, child pornography, anything, sits behind this stuff. Their job, the traffic distribution systems, is to pair victim with actor.
So you basically operate as a themselves.
It's exactly it. They are a middleware player. Which is why it's disruptive if we could disrupt them. Yeah. Any more for any evil?
I've got a question.
Go on then, Tom.
So there's like various kind of home use kind of like free tools out there that do like DNS filtering, ad blocking, stuff like that.
Yep.
Is that similar to the service you offer, but just on an enterprise scale? Is that the kind of...
I've been so good about not talking about product. This is B-sides, not InfoSec. So, yes, in essence, there are things like Pi-hole, DNS filter, and so on that we can use at home. The reality is they don't have access to these type of data sets. So, yes, the methodology is the same. I try not to worry too much about the blocking aspect, because blocking is easy. You can block on any control you want, or just ingest data into the SIM and then figure out what's what in the, who's who in the zoo inside the network. So I don't tend to worry about talking about blocking, but essentially what you've said is correct. Is we have a data set. That data set can be applied to any DNS server.
Thank you.
All right. Any more?
When you showed the slide on your traffic graph, you mentioned that you ignore Google.com and Office 365 and whatever because that's normal.
Yep.
Does that then mean that you would be ignoring CNAME takeover attacks, where someone's got an Azure service that they then deleted but not removed their CNAME?
Okay. So no, but it just wouldn't form part of the data set that looks at a traffic distribution system. So that's a completely different set of analysis. Right. You're right. So you've got subdomain takeover, you've got all that kind of element, which is something that we should absolutely, as an industry, focus on. But that would be a different subset of research to the TDSs.
Right.
But there's a nice little overlap in the middle. I'll grant you that one. But no, we wouldn't classify a Google or an Amazon or an Azure or a yada 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 as part of a TDS. But we do look for behaviours that go to their domains and subdomains, which is not small. It could be DNS tunneling or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yes. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Yes. Something we care about, but doesn't fall into the research for TDSs. Brilliant. No, we're good.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, Gary. Excellent talk.
Thank you.